for them to know that when they shoot something, where is it going, where will they, you know, um, very interesting women at NASA who were really great brains and mathematicians, and all that story was not known. It was just in the past years. That's why Katherine Johnson just it was from Obama that she got the recognition for that, and she was awarded for that work. You know, but after a long time, you know. And then another area that I can talk about, like the pyramids. We talk about pyramids in Egypt, but we have a lot of pyramids also in Sudan. In fact, more than the pyramids in Egypt. You know, and the interesting part is that most of these pyramids in Sudan were dedicated to women. It also shows that like the place of women in many African societies who were real queens, who were like the real rulers. You know, there are interesting stories from Sudan, even from Ethiopia, but all over Africa. You know, like we have got Queen Zinga, we have got a lot of great queens all over Africa. Yeah. One area that is also important is medicine. Medicine, even up to now, it's interesting that these days there are many, even this modern medicine, they're trying to go back to these African roots, you know, to because they have seen that they're effective and they don't have they have less effects, side effects, and all those things, you know. But also in medicine, one interesting thing is about even like in surgery. Um, in surgery, there's an in 1879, where a missionary witnessed a Caesarean section, Kaiserschnitt, in Uganda by the Banyoro people. You know, he wrote everything that he was observing there, and at that time, that was the only Caesarean section where the mother and the child at the end survive. You know, so these people in Uganda, they were so far where they could do the operation, make sure that there's no infection. They close everything. After a few days, the woman is walking again. You know, there are other examples even about brain surgeries in Africa. Even now, if you look well, even on YouTube, you can find some of those old videos showing a brain surgery in an African village where they knew exactly what is happening here. You know, and I can just imagine if there was no stop put to that, and if it was supported, I'm sure the whole world could have benefited from such things at an area stage. And maybe I'll say maybe the last part, because there are a lot of things that are there. Mathematics, in the area of mathematics, you know, that's also another interesting area. But one thing that can be also said about is like the only and the first proof that human beings have been doing mathematics was found in Congo, you know, in this Ishango area. That's why, and it was a bone that they found, which had dots to show all these calculations. That's why they called it the Ishango bone. You know, but not only that, but there are also like one proof is like how in Africa, like even among the Yoruba and other tribes, there are indigenous names for big sums. For example, 1 million. So there's no way someone can find a word for 1 million if they cannot count 1 million. You know, but even like the Yoruba people, there's I've forgotten the name, Dr. Sabetsky. She's from Poland, who wrote the book called Africa Counts. In this book, she wrote about, for example, how the Yoruba count. For example, in English, we say 1 + 1 is 2, but for the Yoruba, they for them, for example, to say 10, they will add something and subtract something, you know. So it's much complicated than even the English way of counting. But for the Yoruba and other African groups, that was just normal, you know. And of course, the last part in the book is I try to write also about new developments in Africa, which young people developing apps. Um, even in the area of maybe agriculture, like I think we got the story of Yakubu Sowadogo from Burkina Faso, who won the Nobel Prize for his methods in farming. So those are great things happening now that can be an inspiration for many of us. Anyway, so now just to cut the story short, I'll just show some pictures. I'll just show some pictures and make a very fast comments. Like this picture shows Memnon. Memnon is like this mythology. If you read the mythology of Homer, even but especially if you are talking about Troy, yeah, Troy, it will show that wherever you find old vessels, whenever you find old clay pots depicting this war in Troy, Troy, German they say Troya. I think English they say Troy. Yeah. There's always a black person in the middle, and that was Memnon. Who was a great warrior. This. And for me it shows that even in the antique, black people were all over the world doing great things. Okay. The next picture also, like this, the picture on top, it was found in Pompeii on a fresco, and here it shows black people in the middle, black women in the middle who were priestesses. Sometimes they even got extra from Ethiopia or Egypt so that they can go to Italy, all over Europe, so that they can conduct the prayers there. They were really an authority. The sad thing is, if you see the picture down, which was made in the 19th century, it's the same picture like the one on top. But the only problem is that the picture down just shows, for example, those are only white people, where which is not a true reflection of history. There are many examples of such things whereby at the beginning black people were involved, but if you see some pictures afterwards, they're not there. There's another book that was written by an American professor, I think called Setting the Record Straight, something like that, where he gave examples and pictures all over the world, especially but in America, where really black people have been systematically removed from scenes or from pictures that say something positive about them. So this is what I was talking about, the picture which was drawn by the missionary Falcon. Yeah? This is the picture I was talking about. Yeah, this I didn't talk about, but I think it's interesting, especially for the people living in Germany, because the picture down there, that's at the gate of the town hall in Coburg or Coburg. Coburg, even now, it has on its coat of arms a black person. Just a few weeks ago, I saw another video of a collection of all towns in Germany who had coat of arms on which you see a black person. So the question that you can ask yourself: were they putting that black person in order to put him down, or that black person was so important for them? So even now, there are other towns in Germany who still using on their coat of arms. You see the black person. Another important, interesting part is even that Pope Benedict, when he became Pope, he on his emblems he had the same black person. So why? Because many dioceses, especially in the south of Germany, used to have this St. Mauritius, but also other black people as their patron saints. Okay, so this is the picture on top of Mansa Musa, the richest man who lived, and the map that you find on top, it was not made by an African. No, it was this Catalan or Catalanische Karte, So it's not like yeah. And then the picture down there, it was drawn by a German historian, bat, depicting Timbuktu. Just imagine the way it looks like that. And it was really about 200 years after Timbuktu was really going down. How did Timbuktu then look when Mansa Musa, the king, was still living? There are many examples of good, big African cities which were described even having big streets, not by Africans, but by Europeans who saw those things when they went to Africa. Other buildings like this is the Lalibela buildings in Ethiopia, which were made with what they call reverse architecture. Yeah, really impressive things, and not only in Ethiopia but all over the world, all over Africa. You find such buildings which are almost unknown to many people. And then this picture here, I think the picture I talked about restitution. What we do with things that we're taking from Africa, what we take them back, like the picture on top is when those are British soldiers after plundering the Benin Reich, yeah. Anyway, and then the last part, these are books that are in the last years, thousands of books have been found in the area of Mali or that area. And these books were like family properties of people from Mali, which many of them were writing these books, or they bought them, but in those books they wrote their own family notes. Another proof that writing in Africa is not something that just came in the last 200-300 years. Okay, as you can see, there are a lot of issues, and I'm just trying to touch here and there, and even the book is really just trying to touch here and there. But the most important thing that it can give us some tips where to look and which topics are important or good for us. Okay, I think that's all. Maybe we can have some questions now. And I don't know how the organizers have done that with the questions.
Thank you so much, Keith, for the presentation. Before maybe I can talk, I would request Enoch to come in and comment before we can allow all other people to ask questions. By Enoch. Mr. Chota.
Keith, thank you very much for that wonderful work you've done. It's really, is very, it covers quite a lot of areas, actually. Now, I was also quite interested in the past of, like I think 2 years ago, I went to Zambia. I visited the museum. I don't know if you've been there, the Zambian Museum, the one at around Kabulonga. And it's also very interesting when you go there and see what the history of Zambia actually depicts, and especially on the metalworking part, just the the technology they use to melt metal. I mean, those were like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And I was myself very impressed to find out that particularly we the Zambians, were involved in such a high technology. So it's something that's been very interesting to me. And talking of Mali, I've also heard of that. I've also heard of like the very first Black people were actually the very first people to visit South America or touch America were actually the Black people, especially from the area of Mali. Talk of the pyramids or the Maya. They compare that mathematical, constructions of the Maya pyramids way back to the Sudanese pyramids, because there are a lot of similarities in that. So it's I think it's a topic we need to indulge in, educate ourselves. And I think when we are aware of those things, that makes us also as Black people very much proud of, the achievements and what we can do.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. No, like what you're saying, a good example, especially about even in the books that I talked about from the UNESCO, the history of African history from the UNESCO, they mentioned some of these metal sites, like in Zambia. One thing I really found interesting, I think Vamlenga Kapwepwe, I think you know her, she's been doing great things And a few weeks ago or months ago, she posted a picture of her, I think she was in Sweden or somewhere. She posted a picture of her inspecting some old clothes, but made out of animal skin. But they're made in such a way that as if it's just from wool, but with some patterns on it. And those things were made from Zambia. I think either the Batwa, I don't want to say something wrong, but they were made from some Zambian people. And if you just compare when was that made, and if you look at those clothes, you see how far our people were, to work on those animal skins, such that you think that is just maybe it's a machine which drew those patterns on that thing. Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hamaimbo, for the presentation. That has been really wonderful. And I think now we can open the floor for questions. Just maybe for the good flow of the whole thing. We start with, before we can allow people, if there are people who are watching us, before we can allow them to come in, we start with those who are here with us online. So if anyone has a question, please, you can easily come forward. You can raise your hand, we can see that. And then we can let you talk, and then you can answer Keith can answer the question. You can unmute yourself. There's no problem now. You can, so that you can speak. Anyone who has a question. Okay, maybe to make it easier, don't know, people, they are not talking.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Is that Rachel?
Quiet.
How are you feeling, madam?
Much better, thank you. But I'll leave you just now after a few seconds. Sorry, okay. A few minutes.
Please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I heard Mr. Hamaimbo mentioning the name Nimrod. Is he referring to the Nimrod in the Bible or another Nimrod?
Nimrod.
Yeah.
Memnon.
Oh, Memnon.
Yeah, Memnon. Yeah.
Oh,
Not Nimrod, but
okay.
Memnon. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just want to say something because you mentioned Vamlenga Kapwepwe. Yeah, I just want you to know that Vamlenga, my brother, my elder brother, Mr. John Njovu, works with Vamlenga Kapwepwe. And they are very active in terms of art.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in case you need anything like more information, or they may need information from you, you can get in touch with my brother. He's very flexible. He's willing to meet people like you who are into writing, storytelling, and everything. So yeah, he would be very interested to know that there's one out there who's also into the same field as him. I want to tell you that he has first-hand information regarding the sack that you mentioned.
Okay.
So I'm sure he's the best person you can relate to.
Okay.
If I know you need his contacts, I can freely give it to you.
Okay. No, that's good. But even Navamlenga, we have got contact with her, but such a person, I would like to meet him also. For example, if I go to Zambia, to meet such people personally. That's very
definitely. So they presented a book just now. He writes books also, and he was also presenting the same sentiments like you are presenting. And it was like, we wish I could gang up with somebody who is into book writing, who has the same interest as him. Yeah, so that's the only thing I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. We have a number of people here. Please, we can come up with questions. We have guests, though we cannot really know your name. I saw Dr. Ngwenya. Ngwenya, is it Mr. Dr.? He was with us here. Okay. Mr. Kafuta, do you have any questions?
Yes, indeed. Can you try to explain in simple terms what the effect of the downgrading of African achievements mean to, for example, the development of a country like Zambia, the chronology in which it developed and the ability to have a vibrant economy? Try to explain, like in a picture, simple term, the relationship between the downgrading of African achievement and also downgrading our development or holding our development down.
I think one example, one word that is used, especially in psychology, is like the internalization of oppression. You know, because of all these experiences, somehow, some of our people, some of us, we have internalized this way of thinking about ourselves, such that, for instance, I can give you an example of people, some colleagues I know here in Germany, who give an example. For example, they go to Zambia, yeah, and me, Keith, I am their boss here. I am the one leading that project, but this person, my colleague, the one who is under me, she or he is German. I go with them to Zambia. The Zambians, when they see these people, they will not even, some of them may not look at me. Immediately, they will think this white person is my boss. So I've heard of some African people who got so frustrated leading some projects. Why? Because the local people didn't want to listen to them. They rather wanted to listen to the people who are under them. So the question is, why? How can we develop, or how can we really go forward with thoughts if we think that our brother or sister cannot be the one leading such a big project, you know? So it also, for me, it also affects our politics in such a way that we trust so much anything that comes from outside, you know. One example I can give you, for example, sometimes I even ask myself now, when I was in school, I was learning so much, for example, about Canada. For what? I learned so much about Canada, writing about Canada, or I knew my rivers Bakuja, auswendig, just like that. Then I'm asking myself, how much did I learn about Zambia? If I learn all those things about other countries, about other people, but I learn a little about my own, how can someone expect that I treasure my own, you know? So for me, that's I don't know if those are simple terms, but for me, it's just an example of how this tradition of not showing our positive parts but rather the negative things. This is how like it makes us think that we are not good enough. You know, that's why for me such a book, like in the book, I think I even talked about one of the youngest pilots in the world. This young, yeah, Kalanga, this young Zambian who was one of the youngest pilots, you know. So just imagine if many young Zambians hear that one of your friends became a pilot when he was so young, that can inspire a lot of young people, you know. So, yeah, okay, to cut it short, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, yes, you did. And just a follow-up question. Do you think that the white people who later colonized that, do you think it was something like a master plan that they went through, or do you think it was just a lot of coincidences that they were able to carry out everything the way they did, and colonizing, getting hold of minerals and currencies, which is ongoing up to now? What is your assessment about that?
I think I wouldn't want to say, to answer the part where if I can say if it was a plan or if it was coincidence, because if I say if it was a plan, auf Deutsch, das hört sich fast wie eine Verschwörungstheorie, you know, which I wouldn't prove. But one thing I can say is that since whatever old books you read, and even now, people outside of Africa, they have recognized what good they can get from Africa. And they will do everything possible to go and get those things. You know? So for me, that's even now, even when you see, for instance, I know this is critical, but we had a few weeks ago this meeting with some African leaders coming to Germany and talking about business with Germany, with Europe, you know. And if they talk about opportunities in Africa, we ask ourselves, are those opportunities for Africans or for Europe? You know. If you look all the presence of all these people in Africa, foreign countries, nations in Africa, they all want something from Africa. And for me, that's okay. But the thing is, which incentives do we give as Africans so that we can also benefit from that? That's the main thing. For me, even us, we have got the right to do business somewhere else. Yes. But the thing is, if we want to do business somewhere else, those people there, they will give us, they've got their own rules. But the question is, which rules do we make? You know, we just mostly we don't do much. We let all these foreign companies just go away with tax without paying taxes all over the place, you know. So the thing is, to answer your question, I think I cannot really say if it was a plan, but I know that history has shown that many of these people from Europe, from America, all over, they will do everything possible to get their hands on African resources.
Thank you so much, Keith. The next person we have on the line, who raised the hand, is Carlo Cakes. Carlo Cakes.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Hey.
Good evening, please. Are we in a position to see you?
My camera should be on.
Okay, I can see you now. All right, let me see if I can bring you up here. Sure. So please, your question.
Okay, so congratulations, Keith, on your book. I'm happy for you, and I'm glad to know a Zambian author came up with this book. I like how diverse the book is, and I also feel like it's super important to just at least put quite a lot of it into a nutshell, all the diversities of the history and just the intelligence from back then, because a lot of us feel like, the colonizers came and, you know, they brought schools and all that kind of stuff. So it's super important what you've done here, Keith. I just wanted to ask if in the future you'll be focusing on the particular topics, because your book is so diverse, that, for instance, you spoke of there having been C-sections back then and the different forms of medication and such. And then you also speak of the concept of Ubuntu and bits and pieces of the Egyptian history and so on and so forth. If in the future you will write several books which literally concentrate on such, because that would be super interesting for me. And the second question, just so that I finish, is when is the English version coming out? Thank you.
Yeah. The English version should come out as soon as possible. I hope we can find money for that, because I think it can be easy. I think it can be easy to make. I think it cannot be so difficult, but I hope it will not take more than 2 years. Yeah. I'll be the happiest if my people can read the book in Zambia. Yeah.
Sure, that's very interesting, and that is why, Carol, we are trying our best to sell out and market him out so that the money can be raised if anyone is ready to help, so that we can have this book in English. You know, we as Africans, maybe one thing we have to know is that we have to start learning to support our own. You know, that is very, very important. We need to start, you know, in the Western world, if someone is a star, no matter what he does is not all that interesting. They will support their own.
Yeah.
So Keith is our own, so you want to support him, please. Anyone will come up with suggestions how we can help. Maybe we can move on questions. Mr. Tedson Nyangwe, what's Ngwenya? Mr. Ngwenya, you are there as a guest. Please, if you could ask your question, I can allow you to talk. Mr. Ngwenya, he's not talking. Okay. So, okay, let's move on. We have other people. Maybe just start up. We have also one guest, Gabe. Who is that one? Please, if you could just unmute yourself and say something, both your video and yeah. It's not talking. All right, then Mr. Mwaba.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Yeah, please.
Good evening, Mr. Keith. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you so much for the nice book. I think it's quite inspiring that, you know, we have so much that we have not put in black and white, and like the saying goes that if you want to hide anything from a black man, put it in writing. So it's like we've done so much, but very little has been documented, and that's why I want to say congratulations again for, you know, trying to put things in black and white, so that I mean, when it's in black and white, we are assured that it will be in the shelves for many years to come. Yeah. One other area that probably like the lady suggested, that if you're going to going forward, if you're going to write other books and maybe you just pick one area and concentrate on it. One area that is of interest is, for instance, our agriculture, the way it has evolved from way back. Right now, when you look at the history of our agriculture, you find that at some point we could even have had better practices than what were introduced later on. For instance, our forefathers would grow their food without necessarily stamping the whole field. I know that in Zambia, for instance, there are certain areas where they would not completely stamp their fields. Their fields would still have, and that way the soil fertility would continue for many years. But I mean, with technology, those farming practices were thrown out, saying no, they are so backward and the like. New forms of agriculture were introduced, but they are quite detrimental to productivity of our soil. So it would be nice if such areas are also documented properly, and what the benefits were, and how we are going back to some of them, because I think the way it is now, if you look at again our parents, the way they would recycle things. For instance, if you have a container of cooking oil in the home, you would not throw away the empty container. You would just wash it and start using it for water in the past. Then technology came where people stopped recycling those. They were completely, getting rid of them. But now we've gone back to our old ways of saying, no, can we reuse, recycle,
connection?
Yeah. So if some of those were documented way back, we would have been probably appearing as heroes, because we would have been using the technology that is seen now to be, this is the technology we should go for. We had those technologies from way back. So I think my point is we need a documentation of most of these things that we've been doing in the past, but they've not been properly documented. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mr. Mulongo.
Thank you so much. Maybe if you can chip in and.
Really, on that one, I can just agree. I cannot. You are really on point. Look, even this man I talked about, the one who won the Nobel Prize for his work of trying to plant trees to make sure that the desertification does not continue. This Sowodogu, the man from Burkina Faso, he was using old methods, like he used what they call the stay method, but you also combined it with new things, But even in that case, you find it was not something new. It was something that his ancestors were using all the time. He just didn't forget those things and then tried to combine it with new things, especially with new financing and all those things. There are many other areas, like I've been reading some articles like from Burkina Faso also, where they have been trying even to make some insecticide or even some medicine against the ticks for animals from trees, because they know that these chemical medicines, they are not so good even for some animals. So they have been trying to go back to those things they are using before all these modern things were introduced. So our things can be the documentation should help us to keep that knowledge that we have, but also to give us an opportunity to improve on them also. We're not saying that our methods were perfect, but if we know them, chance to improve on them, Thanks.
Yeah.
So wonderful, wonderful. Really, they say in German, "Wir schreibt bleibt." Yeah, that's what they say, and that's why you can see that they have knowledge which is coming out all the way from centuries. Look at the printer system. It is coming from the 16th century, around 1558, around that time. Gutenberg in Mainz started all this thing, and you can see it is something that we are using up to now throughout the world. In reality, is that if you want to be rich, you don't need 1,000 ideas. You just need one idea. That's all you can. It's only that myself, I need sufficient. I don't want to be rich. I just need sufficient. Okay, let's go ahead and see if there is anyone who want to ask from the people who are present here, please come up, or else we can try to open if there are people who have called or who are calling on the phone. Is there anyone who still want to ask a question? Okay, nobody.
That's just Isaac.
Yes, please. We are not getting you. You are mute.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Now we can hear you.
No, just one question before we go further. I wanted to ask.
I know you are breaking, so.
Can you hear me now?
You are still breaking.
Oh?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, with some echo.
Let me put the volume low, maybe. Is it better that way?
Yeah, though we will have two devices open.
No, just one.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, my question was, is there anything we as a community can do to help you in whatever things you're working on, whether it has to do with the book or maybe the direction of financing that English version? I don't know if there's anything we can do, or just, go to the community and try to develop ideas on that issue.
I think for me, one thing I would appreciate is it's very simple. If we support that, then a lot can work out. And one of my simple requests is just like I think what Mulongo said, supporting each other. And I would be very happy for instance, if 100 of our people just share the link to the book that is already out, or recommend the books to anyone that, just aggressively support the book such that we sell a lot, such that even from the sellings of this book, we can be able to finance the other book. So for me, the support that I can really appreciate is people spreading the news, book to the friends, workmates everywhere. That will be enough for me for now.
Okay. Yeah, there's someone whose mic is on. Please, if you don't mind, you can switch it off so that we can have less noise, and then we have a flow of the conversation. Thank you once more for the contributions. Really, we need to support Keith. I'm offering him, I want to buy 1 or 2 books from him for my Christmas. So that I've started it. So, so please get that initiative as well. We really have to sell out this so that next time when someone else writes a book, it will be easy, Yeah, let's make him the best seller from Zambia with his book.
Forward for the English version, I'll be on top of that one.
All right. For us who are wrong here and we have studied in German, it's not a problem. Whether it's English version or it's German version, we do understand both languages salary, and it's okay. So if some they want to wait, it's okay. We have 2 people here who can help us, Linda and Jean. Do we have any calls online?
For now, not yet, unless from Jean's side.
From my side, also not yet. It was only just Rachel who called, but then I gave her the link she wanted.
Okay. So it looks like there were no people who called in.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, we can if there is no any other question or any other contributions, I think we can still slowly come to the conclusion of this session. It was really wonderful. I would allow Keith maybe to say his last words, and then please, then you can also have the last words, then we can close.
Can I say something before?
Yes, please.
You see, one of the reasons why I find the book very important is the question that I asked Keith, the effect of the downgrading of our heritage and culture. It has really changed a lot. If we hadn't had the invaders, the missionaries, we would have been living in a different world, and I'm very sure we would have had very steady societies. But what it did to us was, number one, we have lost our languages. I mean, we are speaking in a foreign language to one another. We're speaking in English instead of using Kikaonde, of course, my first priority, or Bemba, or Tonga, or Nyanja. We have lost our heritage, our history. We don't really know who we are. That's number one. Number two, we have lost our self-respect. You know, one time I had one previous embassy member once told me she would never buy anything from blacks because I don't trust them. You know, that's where I saw the effect of the perception that black is evil or black is not trustworthy. It goes through Hollywood, used by people who want to get the natural resources from us, and then it creeps in up to us, the victims also. We also believe that narrative because everything we see on TV, we used to see on TV was blacks usually as gangster or as robbers or as angry people, and not as engineers, doctors, PhD. And even now, it's still, the narrative is still that way. Top models are usually white, skinny, blonde, very seldom really black. Usually they have to have quarters these days. You know, like if they've got a group of 50 models, they at least need 1 or 2 black models to make it look a bit okay. But all these narratives lead to such a funny constellation that, you know, a certain scientists that did research about, I'm giving an example of something else, about dating, yeah, to rate the kinds of people, which level they have. They found out that, for example, the white man is the most desired person in the dating scene, and the black woman the least desired. This has all to do with the narrative that is being sold to us, that we also really believe. So that's why this book is very important as a beginning to start changing our mindset, the way we think, the way we look at life, to build up our self-esteem, to look at our heritage, to look at our languages. You know, I mean, I'm in a interracial marriage. I've been with I've actually only been with German women all my life because I came very young here. And I can tell you none of my German counterparts or partners know any of my languages, but they always expect us to know their languages. If they're in Zambia, the least know our languages in Zambia, they always expect us to know their languages, to speak in their language, you know? It's because of the narrative that's being sold outside. And it's very good. It's high time, really. The narrative starts being changing. And the only people that can tell the truth about the narratives is us, only us. And that is why thumbs up for Keith for the book as a beginning of changing our narrative.
Wow. No, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So well said, well said. Really, that's the thing, and I think I don't know if it's like that for you people, but for me, in the last years, in the last months, I've seen that we are really on the right way, on the right path. You know, many things are happening in the world which are just showing that Black people are waking up, or great things are happening. You know, look at this thing that happened with this South African lady who became Miss Universe. You know, all major beauty pageants in the world at the moment are held by Black women. You know, not only that, but for me the most important thing, especially if we say that we have got friends here who are white or partners, there are people like who look at some of these things we talk about or such a book, they think that you hate them, or you are saying, you're trying to say you are better than them. No, that's not the goal. The goal is like what you said, Wakebo, to change these narratives. You know, we can never be at the same level, at the same working level, if we still have these old narratives that we had. Anyway. Okay, so I should say the closing remarks, eh?
Yes, please.
Okay.
If you can just say your last words.
Yeah. No, my last words really, I'm so thankful for this opportunity. Bamulongo, Bakewoko, Bachota, Bakateve, Baisungyoko, Bajini, Valinda. I don't want to forget anyone, but for me, this is what we need. Really, this blind support. Even if you don't like my book, even if you say this book is useless, but just because it's someone from Zambia, someone of your own, support it. Only in such a way we can move forward. Let's learn to support each other blindly.